your Gemini friend. Welcome to the 7th video in my Planets Through the Houses series, the 7th house. I'll have timestamps for each individual planet if you only want to watch one, but this is going to be every planet, how it can be interpreted in the 7th house of your natal chart. So the 7th house is where it gets important to look at the opposite house. The first 6 are very individual focused, but starting with the 7th through the 12th house, these are more focused on outside of the self, the world, individual relationships. So if you look at the first house, it's very much about us as an individual. It's self-oriented, the way that we're approaching the world, others' first impression of us, things like that. So opposite that, the 7th house, it's going to be about the others, like the way that we are seeing other people, what we're projecting onto other people, what we are attracting based on our energy. They're very connected, but perfectly opposite. So any planets that you have in the 7th house are going to really show how you either show up in relationships or interpret relationships based on your impression of yourself in a way. It's opposite the ascendant or the rising sign is the descendant, okay? So the sign opposite your ascendant sign is going to be your descendant sign. And this can play out in various ways, but it's interesting and it's very individualistic how it is going to play out, but the planets give you a really good idea of it. Even if it is an empty house for you, the sign that is on the cusp of your 7th house is going to be very significant when it comes to your one-on-one relationships. So the 7th house, it's one-on-one relationships, marriage, partnership, the legal aspects of relationships and life. It's very social oriented. It can also be your open enemies, the people like your rival, significant one-on-one relationships, but it's you and another person. So planets here can actually be parts of us that we are either not seeing or that are suppressed in some way. So there can be a tendency to attract people who embody these planet energies. Just for example, say you have Mars in the 7th house. You might find yourself attracting Mars energy type people, kind of more assertive, more direct people. And this could be for the purpose of you kind of having a reason to suppress it within yourself, calling other people to you so that you can work this out and actually find your own assertiveness or ability to stand up for yourself, say, if that happened to be whatever it is. It depends on the planet. This is just a little example at the beginning, and I will get into Mars, obviously, but we can attract people into our lives, especially relationships, especially romantic relationships and friendships, people that embody things that we can't easily see in ourselves in order to develop it. I hope that makes sense. But the main thing to pay attention with this is the balance of the ascendant and the descendant. We don't want to be all focused on us, obviously. We don't want to only focus on our goals and the way that we go about things. The 7th house comes in to balance it out, to introduce people into our lives that are going to affect us in ways that help us to grow. And our souls want to attract these people, even if consciously we're like, no, I hate people like that. Why do they keep coming up in my life? Your 7th house might be a clue on that, and you might want to look at it like, if you're totally like, no, I do not have that aspect and I attract these people all the time and I can't stand it, there's something there, okay? There is some reason why you continue to attract these sorts of people. With the sun in the 7th house as well, there could be a possibility of you not seeing your own, like, shining qualities. You might be down on yourself and your individuality and creativity to the point where it's detrimental to you, but other people can see it. That's the thing with the seventh house and projecting. Other people might see these qualities while you don't. The seventh house it's a little harder to describe for some reason, but for the most part, it's the balance of others and self. It is the others. It's how others play a part in our life. So I'm going to start with the sun. When you have the sun in the seventh house, this really does give a Libra flavor to the overall chart, because your sun, the planet of like who you are kind of showing up as in this life, is in the house of charisma, diplomacy, fairness, beauty, justice, romance and marriage, partnership. These things are going to be really, really significant for you in your like identity. So it's likely that you're probably popular amongst people because you're the sort of person who is like shining socially. You shine socially. You probably have a big friendship circle, or a very good friendship circle. A loyal group of friends that really look up to you for who you are and what you have to say. This could easily be like the leader type in a group. This is a really good placement for leadership. It shows that you're going to be very diplomatic and fair when it comes to really helping out with anything. Like if there's some sort of dispute, this is the sort of person who would be really good at resolving that. And the people that you are going to attract into your life, particularly for the significant relationships, might tend to be more like Sun, Leo type oriented people with more of a flair for the dramatic and showy, like proud of themselves, sort of in a positive way. Or it could be people who you could attract people who are extremely selfish, or self-focused. And this is likely to get you to see your own like shining starness, if that makes sense. Like if you keep attracting people into your life that are overly just have huge egos, then over time that's going to wear on you and you'll start to develop your own ego, but in a more healthy way, most likely, because you'll have seen all these people and you're like, I didn't like how they were. I want to build up myself and be strong too like them, but this could also indicate that you are already like this. That's the thing with this house. You have to figure out if this is something that you're projecting or if it's something that you are actually embodying. Because it really could go either way, but I don't want to make things too complicated. It really depends on what is going on within your chart and how the sun in the seventh house is aspected and what is affecting it. So that could be a fun little research project. But in a more positive way, this could very much be just somebody who attracts very vibrant partners, charismatic people that are really fun and loyal. The sort of energy that when they're shining, you're shining too. Like they support their friends or you support your friends. But some challenges with this position would be issues that like Libras might have, indecision, considering other people before themselves. There could be, like I said, the tendency towards attracting people who are more selfish and potentially even like dominating because they are so focused on themselves. There could be an issue with individuality or with over identifying with something that is holding back your ability to like truly feel like an individual. There could also be a hard time in like terminating things because you don't want to upset the balance. But for the most part, this can kind of go either way. You could be like this or you could attract people like this. And there is also a high possibility that either you or like your relationships or your like romantic partners or your romantic life could be very public. Like this could be something that people are interested in, or it just is very visible. Like there's a big bright shining light here for you. Because with the sun in the 7th house, I mean, that means that relationships are likely a really big focus for you in your life. You could be a very romantic person and be always looking for a partner. Like if you, I mean, that could be another challenge, is issues with feeling complete if you're single. I'm going to move on to the moon now. So with the moon in the 7th house, there is a high likelihood of attracting people who are more Cancerian into your life, more nurturing or potentially moody, maybe even kind of babyish or needy. But a positive expression of this would be having very fulfilling and like deep, harmonious emotional relationships with your friends, or with, when I say friends, I mean each individual friend. This is not about your group of friends. This is about your relationship with your close friends, each individual one. But in a love relationship, this is like somebody who is really, really marriage oriented, most likely. It's not necessarily traditional, but there is a higher likelihood of like wanting to be married or having a relationship that's maybe more domestic. You could either desire to be a sort of maternal figure or a very nurturing partner, or you could attract partners who are like that type, where they really, really want to take care of you and they're very concerned about your feelings. And they could also, either they or you could very much want children. But it's a very sensitive and intuitive approach to like commitment and getting close to people. And you're likely very, very empathetic when it comes to your partner's feelings, very concerned with like their emotional well-being at all times. And this is also beauty within the home. A harmonious and attractive and comfortable home would probably be very significant and important for your well-being. There could be a potential for actually being more emotionally cold and attracting partners who help you to bring out more emotional like depth, warmness, and vulnerability in the connection. So you could have you could have repeated relationships where your partner is much more, you could even perceive them as needy, like in a feeling sort of way, for the purpose of like bringing out vulnerability in you and making you more comfortable with that. Or it could be the opposite, where you find that you're the one in relationships that is over giving, and really just too focused on like pleasing your partner and making sure that they're always okay and fed and good while neglecting yourself. I guess I'll get into the challenges because it seems like I've done that. So yeah, there could be a difficulty in asserting your needs within the relationship, or a dependency on the relationship itself, or on a relationship itself. Boundaries could be an issue. And with the moon being moody and fluctuating, you could have really big highs and lows in your relationships. Emotional disharmony would be very disruptive. But it's very likely that all of your significant and close relationships, it's much more likely that you're a very nurturing force for these people. Like, it's possible that you're attracting these people to bring that out in yourself, but most likely you already do embody these traits. And it's quite possible that you don't see these in yourself, but other people do. Like, people could very much be attracted to these qualities in you, your nurturing and giving nature, but you might totally not see that in yourself. Like, you're like, what? I'm like that? You don't even know. That's the thing with the 7th house. Okay, so with Mercury in the 7th house, you very likely are attracting people who are stimulating your mental abilities, people who really make you think and talk, people who just really bring out like your chatty, inquisitive, thoughtful side. You will either be attracted to those sorts of people, or people will see this in you. You might not even see it in yourself as clearly as other people are very much going to see it in you. But this is a very intellectual placement. There's a really strong value on mental, intellectual connections in relationships with partners. Like, it's really unlikely that you would get married to somebody boring. That's like death for Mercury in the 7th house. You likely have a lot of friends, maybe a lot of very close relationships with a lot of people. You probably communicate with your friends and any loved ones frequently. This is a very, very communicative placement. It's less traditionally monogamous because there might be like a desire to really see everything out there. It's not disloyal. It's just curious. I'm not saying this is like a cheater position at all. It's absolutely not. That depends on so many other things in your chart. But that is not what I'm trying to say. It's just that this mercurial need for constant mental stimulation really will have somebody try out all their options and really exhaust them before they settle down. Your tendency towards relationships is probably more analytical and less emotional. This is definitely like an overthinking relationships placement. So there could definitely be anxiety there when it comes to your close relationships, or just a lot of thinking, potentially lots of overthinking in this placement. But it is really good for verbally solving conflicts, like somebody who can really help facilitate compromises and take both sides and see like a good solution, like a good conflict resolution type of person. You might attract a lot of Geminis or Virgos into your life, or other very mercurial people. Your social connections likely have a lot of variety. You probably have a lot of very different, interesting people in your life that I would see this as like somebody who really goes all in on a conversation but might not communicate with that person for a few weeks. Like somebody who gives absolutely a lot when you are talking to them, paragraphs and helping and just like a wonderful connection, but then you might disappear for a while and then like you're back and everything is fine. So some people might not see you as as much of a reliable friend as you might actually be, because others might see you as flaky, or like there's always so much going on with them, they're so distracted, but that's just a possibility. But some challenges with this are lacking a desire to really have deep conversations. See, not deep, that's not what I meant to say. Lacking in the ability to have conversations that are more emotionally vulnerable, or that go into feeling so much. You could probably analyze the heck out of anything and intellectualize it, but like actually going into somebody's feelings might be harder. And your relationships could be more shallow in the way that they are lacking in the emotional connection, though you might know everything about them. It's a more cerebral position than like a heart-focused placement. And like I said, overthinking relationships, probably not too confrontational, especially not when it comes to your own stuff. You might absolutely be wonderful at, resolving everyone else's conflicts, but when it comes time to bring up your own thing, that might be really hard. And there could be like people pleasing, might be hard to make decisions, really hard to make decisions actually. This kind of seems like somebody who just cannot choose because they can see the upside to everything. Like, oh, that would be nice, but that might be good too. So it's like really, really hard to make that decision. Okay, Venus. Venus in the 7th house is a very romantic placement, most likely, because this is where Venus, it's one of the houses that it's most comfortable in. This is Libra. I mean, you can easily attract Libras and Tauruses into your life. But somebody with Venus in the 7th house is really good at making their close, like their loved ones, feel really valued. Venus in the 7th house is great for if you have, no matter how big your friend circle is, even if it's massive, each individual very likely feels very valued by you. Like, you probably give your full attention to people when you're talking to them. Even if you're not, in your head, it comes across that way. People likely see you as, like, lovely, harmonious, somebody who is just, like, socially graceful and there, and it's a placement of people seeing you in a pleasant way, people receiving you in a pleasant way. You might not see it in yourself, but other people, if you have Venus in the 7th house, it is very, very likely that other people see you as beautiful, be that physically, energetically, their relationship with you. It's lovely. It's a really nice place for Venus to be. Because it's like the planet of harmony and the house of harmony. So when you are having some sort of conflict or confrontation, it might be very upsetting and uncomfortable for you. This is somebody who does not like it when there is fighting around them, most likely, especially within their friend group, or, I mean, in their relationship. This is like marriage, big focus on marriage. I would think that this sort of person might really, really be into planning their wedding. Somebody who is always seeking like their life partner, but you might have a lot of relationships. You could easily date a lot of different people and really get a good feel for like what there is out there for you, because this is such a focus. This is like, romance is just very likely a big focus in your life. You probably think about the idea of a relationship or your partner all the time. There is definitely a possibility towards over-identifying with the relationship itself and having lower self-esteem when not in a relationship or when feeling like you're not being viewed as attractive. There could be a very, very strong need to be seen as attractive and as a desire to be like popular and well liked. And I mean, this is stylish. It's like actually looking good and focused on looking good. This is also like in legal things tend to go better for you. Things tend to just kind of align in a way that make things go more easily if you were to have any sort of legal disputes, unless your Venus is aspected really poorly or has something weird going on. I guess that's a possibility, but overall Venus in the house of legal things, I mean, it's a more pleasant way of experiencing them, possibly. But I mean, think legal and harmony. This is marriage. This is the placement of marriage. So you're likely a very committed person or someone who's very oriented towards marriage, or like I said, the wedding itself might be a huge focus. And it's also likely that you are more attracted to people who are well put together and well dressed, well groomed. It is possible that you are like, no, I hate beauty. I don't want to be seen as beautiful. I don't like harmony. I like dissent. And if like this is the thing with the 7th house, like I've said, you might attract people who are very, very, very harmony oriented, and you can't see it in yourself. Like this is something that you actually need to develop in yourself. You could potentially be super not into like this. I know it sounds so contradictory, but like it really depends on your specific chart and what is going on within your 7th house, whether or not this is going to exhibit itself as something that you can see or something that you can't see and others can. But either way, it is very necessary to balance that with whatever you have going on in your 1st house situation. Oh, it's just so specifically personal. If you have Venus in the 7th house and you have anything to say about what I'm saying here, I'm very curious. Please let me know. Like, I have questions and I want to help you, or I want to figure out like what's going on there. So some challenges with Venus in the 7th house can be, like I said, over identifying with the relationship or with the partner. There could be a tendency towards too much like giving and focus towards your partner. There could be it could be hard to like address issues or to stand up for yourself because you don't want to break the peace that is already there. So like conflict avoidance. There could be an overdependence on your partner, or just dependence in general on your partner, not in a negative way, but this could be a partner who does provide for you. And there could be the tendency to prioritize the attractiveness of somebody, like subconsciously prioritizing it to the point where you might not even give certain relationships, be they romantic or not, a chance. If somebody doesn't meet whatever like beauty standards that you have, just a possibility for a negative expression of this placement. But overall, Venus in the 7th it's quite a natural placement. Lots of things could be going on, but it's good for the most part. Anything can be expressed in a positive way. So Mars in the 7th house. Mars in the 7th house, you could easily attract more assertive, potentially even dominating partners. This could be like Aries and Scorpio type people. People could potentially be controlling of you or overly aggressive towards you, or you could be this way in relationships. But likely it is a lesson in either asserting yourself, learning to really be able to assert yourself and really address conflict. That is often a lesson with Mars in the 7th house. You could take a very assertive stance in your relationships. You could be have very active, like action-oriented relationships, sports and stuff, like, I don't know, hiking dates. Mars in the 7th house, see, it can be very playful. When it's more of a positive expression, it's like somebody who really enjoys debating with their partner, somebody who is attracted to people that they can kind of playfully fight with, like arguing for fun is a possibility, but it's likely that you face relationships in a more pursuit-oriented way. You could easily be the one to initiate, or the one to take charge more often, or you could see, this is the thing, if your Mars is, if you have issues with this energy within you, you could definitely be attracting these very assertive, possibly aggressive partners that are picking up on something in your energy that your soul wants you to learn from. Your soul wants to express itself in this way and really have control, and control is not the right word exactly. The self-control, like not giving up your own control or power in relationships. That is what I'm trying to say. That could easily be a lesson for you. But you might also really enjoy, like I said, action-oriented relationships. Physical intimacy, very important with Mars in the 7th house. This is marriage and physicality and sex drive. This is likely a really, like, I mean, if you're marrying someone, if you have Mars in the 7th house, you should definitely be physically attracted to them. It's really important for the relationship in most situations, I would say, because it's an emphasis on this energy in that house. You could definitely have, like, your close friendships and relationships could have more of a competitive feel to them. You could, I'm thinking like diplomacy and sports. This seems like a good coach position. I don't know, I'm just thinking. But likely your relationships have a lot of passion and drive behind them. Challenges with this, issues like conflicts in business negotiation. Okay, business partnerships too are absolutely a relevant thing with the 7th house. Any one-on-one relationship. So when Mars is there, I mean, competitive, but also potentially like butting heads in business ventures. Legally, it could be a more difficult position to, I mean, you could have legal conflicts that are like harder to, you could have a lot of drive when it comes to fighting these legal battles. You could be very possessive or jealous in relationships is a possibility. I guess that is with Venus too, being jealous. But, or like lacking in emotional sensitivity. The emotional connection might be more physical than it is emotional or intellectual, or like that the physicality could be the most important thing of the relationship. If that's too much of a focus, that can be a challenge. And there could also definitely be a tendency towards burnout in relationships because of overgiving for, well, it's like overgiving because you feel like you can, because you have this strength and drive when it comes to the relationship. You might sacrifice a lot for the sake of your partner, which can have really strong negative consequences, like on your body, or like on you in general, is a possibility. People might see you as impatient, aggressive, like blunt and possibly over direct. I mean, this energy does not express itself that easily in the seventh house. They're kind of incompatible energies, but it's not the worst thing at all. There's definitely a positive way to go about it. I'm going to move on to Jupiter. So when Jupiter is in the seventh house, there is a high chance of you attracting more Sagittarius type people who are optimistic and have a big positive outlook on life. People who have a lot to tell you, a lot of information, likely a lot of experience and wisdom, possibly older. I don't know if that's a thing. That's just something that my brain said. You could have luck legally. That's one thing. You could also have a lot of partners. You could have a lot of relationships. You could have really good luck in relationships. You could have relationships that provide for you. This would be really good for business partnership because it would indicate that you would really get along well so long as you have your freedom. Yeah, business partnerships would work really well, most likely. And not just like monetary luck. This can be any form of partnership really bringing fortune into your life, spiritually, philosophically, like bringing more knowledge and wisdom and experience and expansion through your one-on-one relationships or through your marriage. This can very much be like an extremely prosperous marriage. It's a very positive outlook on relationships. Okay, I have this placement. Jupiter in the seventh house for me has been... I also have Pluto in the seventh house, so I'll get to that there. They're two planets that work oddly with each other. So what I'm about to say isn't... This is just my personal experience with my combination of energies. But I find that I really do have a lot of luck and opportunity come to me through partnerships and a really good, like, intellectual relationship with people. It's like a focus on expansion. It's a curiosity that really wants to get things out of other people for growth purposes, for like the growth of wisdom through other people. So there can be a tendency for other people to see you as somebody who is very wise and has a lot of like knowledge and experience to share. You might not see that in yourself at all. This is a potential for having, like I said, a lot of relationships, but just any sort of relationship. So you could have a lot of really close friends, not necessarily, but it's like a really big need for your relationships to be expansive for you, and the sort of energy that will leave them when they are no longer supplying this essential growth. Like if a relationship goes stagnant and you're not getting anything from it, then it's likely that you will not be able to tolerate it for a longer amount of time than you should, because this is so growth oriented that it's like it's just a really big focus. So it's really important for that to be the case. You could easily be an advocate for the equality of others, for everyone. This is another really good placement for standing up for people and conflict resolution, though challenges, there could definitely be a tendency towards being overly optimistic in relationships in general, or like kind of glossing over things in a way that is intended to be positive, but other people are like, no, I when I say other people, I mean like the individuals that are relevant within the seventh house. You could also actually rely on your partners for like meaning in life. That's a possibility. And overextending yourself, thinking that you have more energy than you do for certain things. There could also be overspending within the marriage. It's all that optimism. That optimism thinks that things are better than other people might see them to be. So when you have Saturn in the seventh house, this makes things, when it comes to contractual agreements like marriage, legal binding things, this is a very serious approach. This is commitment, okay? This is somebody who, when dating, it might be a slow start. You might have a slow start to dating because the purpose of dating is to find a partner. This is so commitment oriented. This is also, I would just think that someone with Saturn in the seventh would be a very good judge, like as a vocation, a judge. Somebody who has likely good legal, just like a talent in that area, though there can be possibly like a pessimistic or restrictive view of things, but overall there is just a very strong respect for the law. This is likely not a lawbreaker, because fear of the law can actually be a potential with this. And you might even have good reason. You might not. But it's likely with Saturn in the seventh house that other people see you as very serious and disciplined and the committed sort of person, or that you really attract people like that. People with Capricorn, Saturn energy. People who might even be like oppressive or pessimistic to the point where they are oppressive. And when I say pessimistic, it's like based in the fear of losing something, losing freedom, or losing like personal power, or losing the relationship. But either way, relationships are taken very seriously, whether they're like your marriage partner or your business partner, or any one-on-one relationship. It's really taken as like a commitment. Here I am on an entirely different day. Totally different. All of a sudden to finish Saturn. Okay. What did I not say? So with Saturn in the seventh house, relationships are taken very seriously. I said this. Laws as well. It's funny. I was just in court for jury duty, and I have an entirely different perspective on the legal system. Here we are just jumping into this in the very end, because that's fun, adding some more concepts for the seventh house. This is about cooperation. This house is the first of the houses that doesn't deal with just you. So considering Saturn in this area, this is restriction when it comes to perhaps even cooperation itself, not through like rebellious means, but more in the way that it's like there is some sort of reason to cause this hesitance or fear when it comes to either partnership, romance, marriage. The deal with that is obviously when you're taking marriage really, really, really seriously, lifetime commitment, you're not just going to jump into it. It takes taking something so seriously, it puts a lot of value and a lot of weight on it. That's the main thing that I think of with Saturn in the 7th house. I'm sure this sounds so disjointed. What can I do? I stopped recording after the middle of Saturn. All right. I guess the only other thing that I can think of that's a challenge, I'm not saying it's all challenges with this placement, but it's wherever you have Saturn is going to be a challenge anyway. So you might face tests in your relationships. Not necessarily your partner's testing you, but like actual tests coming from your soul, from your path, like wanting you to learn something. When Saturn is in the 7th house, there is a major part of your life is learning this either cooperation or getting to where you feel like you are able to overcome whatever it is that's keeping you from this concept, be it like fear of betrayal or something that causes you to not want to commit. But people with Saturn in the 7th house are really, really wonderful partners to have because you know that you've got them for life or until things are beyond unbearable. This is the sort of stick it out, thick and thin, life and death, all of that. So next, Uranus in the 7th house is very, very, very different from Saturn in the 7th. It's not the opposite, but it has a lot of very opposite parts to it because this is the rebellious planet. This is the non-conformist planet. This is the planet that is most likely to rebel against like standards like marriage or to question and cause society to rethink things like this. It's somebody who's attracted to unconventional, rebellious, innovative, Uranus, Aquarius type people. Somebody who, you might be like a sapiosexual. You probably need your partner to be smart, to have a deep intellectual connection is what I am emphasizing. Not necessarily a deep emotional connection. It's all about being able to be someone that you can like bounce ideas off of each other and it never gets stale. Because that is a major thing with this placement is that things might get stale really quickly because you're looking for so much novelty in your relationships, or you're looking for someone to surprise you, or you might be looking for chaos. You might be looking for whatever was familiar, or if your parents had like a really uncommon marriage situation or relationship status, they might not have even been married. It could be so many things, but it goes against the norm is like the point of that. So that would have been a relationship where early on you saw it modeled and like you saw that as parents or whatever it is, it's very, very situational, but this is just entirely the opposite of convention when it comes to relationships. So you might even lean more into the open enemies side of the 7th house, but your relationships could be sudden, disrupted. You could have sudden starts and ends to your relationship. People could be really surprised by your choices of partners. You could choose partners that people will be surprised by. This is all about breaking the norms and being innovative with your relationship even. This is like in the legal aspect of this is maybe more unconventional laws. But essentially it's just like a resistance to all expectations, especially when it comes to marriage or any form of partnerships. This is also very much emphasizing the friendship. You want your partner to be a friend. That's really important, that you do get along on that friend level, and it's not just a romantic connection, because this is a placement that signifies, like, even if you have a more romantic planet in this house as well, or like sign on the cusp of the house, it still indicates a strong need for something very different in your relationships. This is also someone who would require space. Like, you can't be with your partner 24/7. You might even want to have your own home and take a long time to move in with them, or not even at all. This is assuming that you have like a stable partner. This is really, honestly, just pushing the boundaries of the very concept of partnership. And partners, it can be business partners as well. So this could indicate somebody who has, I'm thinking like friends becoming business partners, inventing things. There's that sort of energy. Or having your whatever form of partnership really being like all about advocacy for whatever it is that you're trying to advocate for, really, which is usually going to be some sort of nonconformist, and nonconformist, obviously, time progresses, and things that were once nonconformist things are now totally normal, because they should be. It's innovative in a positive direction. And you could, like, through your relationships, be an advocate for whatever sort of, you get what I'm saying. As far as legally goes, this would be possibly an indicator for like weird ways of the law receiving and handling you. I can't really think of a good example, but just unexpected, chaotic, disruptive. It could indicate a strained relationship with the law, not particularly. Other things in your chart could indicate being more of a stickler for like laws and rules, but this is not somebody who is gonna be huge on following laws, because they tend to see the ones that should be broken and advocate for them to no longer be laws, stuff like that. This is, as far as legality and Uranus goes, that's the direction that it's going in. But this is not to say that you wouldn't have a stable partner. That seriously depends on so many other things within your chart. But this placement in particular is not a let's get married type. I'm gonna move on to the next planet, Neptune. So Neptune in the 7th house. This is attracting or being attracted to Pisces type, more sensitive and empathetic, maybe healers, artists, people who are going to be having a more deep emotional connection with you, someone that you feel like you can be vulnerable with. That would be really important. You might even be seeking like a soulmate, like that is the goal, your soulmate, or having any deep spiritual feelings about your partnership. And with Neptune, this can always get kind of where things might not be clear entirely. So this can indicate relationships with, there could be a lack of commitment. Like, you could attract people that are unwilling to commit when you really want to commit, or it could be the other way around. Just something that is possibly confusing, or I mean, there is the potential to be like full on delusional about things in the way that I think is kind of like, honestly, kind of romantic. Like living a whole life in your head with somebody that might not even know you on that level. This is the sort of energy that I feel like can really lean into that, where there's daydreaming and just really creative, really deep emotions when you're considering a partner. It could even be a completely made up person. Like, that's the thing with Neptune, the creativity and the potential for illusions to be present can make these sorts of fantasy type relationships. So biggest challenge is going to be like idealizing your partner, or maybe having a huge lack of boundaries, overgiving, very, very overgiving. This is it's really like double-edged for me, because I find it so romantic and like full on merging with your partner, like emotionally, energetically, like on all levels. It's just so romantic, but at the same time you can get lost in that, and you can give way more than you need to, and you can attract people who will like suck your energy out because they see how giving you are and they're not giving back. Like, this is the sort of person who you could have a tendency towards finding people like that who take and are comfortable taking, never to give back, but maybe with like breadcrumbs or like future promise of something. This could be a placement where you are engaged for a very long time, or where you're hoping to become engaged for a very long time. Man, Neptune really, it's gonna depend on you, like which way it goes, or it's really more about the level of self-awareness and just where you're at, like as far as expressing the energy. You can express it in a lower vibrational way where it's more overgiving and delusional, or you can express it in the higher way where it's healthfully self-sacrificial. Oh my god, that's not a good example. You can express it in the higher vibrational way that is true devotion, true deep love. This is definitely a marry for life type position, but not necessarily, because depending on so many other things, I mean, there could be a tendency towards coming up with these fantasies for multiple people. Being in a relationship and then someone new sparks your fancy, whatever that phrase is. And then you start to think about them, and fantasies just going really, really, really far with it. So there could be a potential of ruining relationships that way. It really, this placement, it's important to be very self-aware and very honest with yourself, because it can be so easy to deceive yourself. And that's the problem with this, is that it's almost always well-intended and like genuine and romantic at heart. Because the thing is with that, I can see this as the sort of person who can genuinely deeply love multiple people. So, I mean, if you have Uranus and Neptune in the 7th house, you could have multiple deep partnerships, which is interesting with the house of like the singular partner. But I mean, as far as business goes here. Business partnership. See, this one could be dangerous where you could have somebody who is lying to you, deceiving you, hiding things from you. Or you could have a very deep spiritual connection and strong trust, and things work out really well. This one's really tricky because with Neptune energy, especially when it's dealing with other people, what happens is it's kind of intoxicating to love so much and so deeply that it can be addictive. And then with like escapist tendencies, this could really be fantasy or completely losing yourself in a partner, like the concept of them, thinking about them all the time and prioritizing them without prioritizing yourself. This is one of the most obvious descendant things for me, where, and it's the nature of Neptune, is to be kind of hidden from yourself, but where you might just really be unaware of, it could be so many things. This is the danger of Neptune in the descendant area. It's like projected delusions. This is a tricky one, but I actually really love it because in a healthy expression of this energy is just, it's so sweet and romantic. So I'm gonna go to Pluto, which is so, it's different, but there are, I mean, let's start with that. Pluto, depth. So when you have Pluto in the 7th house, depending on other things in your chart, this is a real indicator that you are taking your relationships extremely seriously, but in a different way from the Saturn seriousness, okay? It's not about legally binding and being steadfast. It's about, you are one now, you are mine. It's a possessive sign, okay? This is somebody who you could or could not want to be married, but if you do want to be married, you want your partner to be clearly yours. Like, they're mine. Yeah, we're married. So there might be an emphasis on marriage and a desire towards that, but not necessarily, because the other thing with Pluto in the 7th house is that you can have, your relationships are likely, length could be all over the place, but you tend to hit a point at some point, whatever your limit is, or like the patterns that go with you, where things just need to be ended, and you are likely the one that's going to have to end them. So you actually, I guess this depends on a lot more in your chart, but if you're the type of person who hates terminating things, which is very likely when it's in the house that deals with people pleasing and fairness, ooh, this is a tough house for termination. It can deal with relationships for the most part, but it can also be legally, and I mean relationships, one-on-one relationships, not necessarily romantic, not even necessarily your business partner, but this is someone who can get connected to people and then they're so connected that it's like, oh no, we've become intertwined, and I've realized now that this isn't where I want to go anymore, because Pluto is so transformative. It learns lessons and then moves on so completely. So when you have this planet in this house, it's like relationships as lessons. So you might go through any number of extremely transformational relationships where you're probably the one to change. You're definitely the one to change. Yeah, it's like big shifts in relationships where your partner just can't keep up with your transformation and your growth. That is a high likelihood. Also, there's being attracted to like Scorpio type people, that Pluto energy, that mysterious, sexy, darker, just like being more interested in the darker, less talked about aspects of life, having that be a big thing in relationships, and being attracted to people who are more edgy. With edgy's not the greatest word, but like, you know, people who aren't afraid to say exactly what they think and make it clear. Very honest, very blunt, very, very drawn to honesty, because you want a partner that you can trust. And it will depend on your energies, but you as a partner are someone that can be trusted. Like, even if you have Uranus in this house as well, I would still say, like, no, this is, cut that out. Uranus isn't inherently whatever. And the thing is, you are very likely a healing catalyst in your partnerships, but you're probably already gone, so you don't even see it. Your partners will be deeply affected by you. This does not mean that you can't find somebody and that you're going to outgrow everybody, I promise. You don't necessarily outgrow everybody. You just need to find someone who's got a similar, like, growth pace as you. It's very, 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 very important that you trust your partner. I'm not sure if this is inherently a trusting energy when it's funny. The initial way that I feel like this would be interpreted is somebody who is suspicious in relationships, but I have this placement and I am the least suspicious partner that you could ever have. So that aspect of it is not necessarily true if the person does not otherwise have like jealous, suspicious tendencies. But that possessiveness, that intensity, all of that's gonna be there. And a lack of trust that definitely could. There could be a fear of betrayal and not even wanting to enter relationships because of that. Or a fear of outgrowing people because all of your relationships have been so tumultuous. That's a possibility. And, I mean, on a darker side, this could definitely be somebody with controlling behaviors out of, obviously, that suspicion, like wanting to know everything. This could probably also translate to someone who is very mistrusting of their partner. It's all about how that energy is being expressed in the person. But, it's also really important that your people that you're in a relationship with are psychologically stimulating or interesting for you, because Pluto in the 7th house loves the psychology, especially behind like relationships themselves. You might even be obsessed with, here's a very specific example, fictional relationships. You might get really into that on a psychological level. You want to know what both of them are thinking, going about it from like both sides and just fully delving into that for fun. Just saying, that might be something you like. This is also possibly a sign of like having soul contracts with people more frequently. Like you could look back and find indicators in the charts between you and all of your past partners. You could find like they were all karmic. because you're going to be attracted to those people when you have, by that I mean people that you're going to be learning lessons from, or people that you have some sort of unresolved just stuff with from either past lives or something energetic. Because for you, these relationships are the growth catalyst. Like, these relationships are likely what are going to change you the very most, because this is your Pluto, your house that your Pluto is in. So, some more specific challenges. A difficulty with vulnerability, and you probably really want it, but you might not even be like allowing yourself to accept that you might want that, because why would you want to be vulnerable? Somebody might just betray you. That's a harder way to experience the energy. Obsessive, controlling, power struggles between the people, having weird power stuff, and I don't know, there are a lot of harsher ways that this placement can manifest, but as somebody with it, it's not like a death sentence. It's manageable as long as you work on yourself and do terminate things when you need to. I don't know why I'm using the word terminate, but I can't think of another word right now for ending relationships. Breaking up. You do break up when you need to, because, well, that depends on so many things. But having it on your, or in your descendant house, it can bring that Scorpio magnetism, have people drawn to you because you think they find you mysterious, probably because you're secretive in that way. It's an intense one to have as far as relationships go, but it also indicates that your partners are going to be very significant for your growth. So if you find one that's happy to grow with you, that is such an intense and wonderful bond to have. I just think this one sounds bad, but personal experience, it's not necessarily if you work on it. Anyway, I've finished all of the planets. This is the 7th house. I honestly feel like I am having a hard time explaining it for some reason. It's hard to explain. I'm a very first house ascendant oriented person, if that makes sense, because I have those specific energies very emphasized in that way. So I'm leaning all over in this direction. It's really hard for me to see my descendant, which it already is by nature. So I don't know. I might not have explained this very well or put it a bit too simplistically, but it's the first house to start all of the houses that are like the other houses. They're 1 through 6 are the personal houses that deal with building yourself into who you are. And then starting with the 7th is when you start to interact with other people and cooperate and have relationships with them. So it's the initial other-oriented house. It's the least mature, isn't quite the right word, but it's the first one. So as the energy progresses, it becomes going more towards the 12th house, like merging of everything. This is the beginning of differentiation and combination. I don't know, I'm doing with my hands, but it's getting started with that. It's getting started with your relationships with other people by focusing specifically on the individuals, your relationship with one other person, the relationship itself. That's the 7th house. I hope that made sense. I hope you liked whatever planets you have in the 7th, and let me know what you think. If you agree or totally disagree, whatever. I love you. Thank you for watching.